We start with developing news. A fire at the Broncos Stadium. Plumes of black smoke came pouring out of Empower Field this afternoon as flames swept through two sections of seating. That fire sparked just under the team's ring of fame, and smoke could be seen along I-25 and throughout parts of Denver. Luckily, that fire is now under control, but Denver 7's Ivan Rodriguez is live at the stadium now with the latest. Ivan, quite the afternoon out there.
Quite the afternoon, Jason. We're standing on the north side of Empower Field. This is really where we've seen a lot of that fire truck personnel presence. Fire trucks still here, a lot of engines still on scene. Firefighters here as well. I can still see them. But really, if we take a look up, that's where the story was. Right now, all that smoke, we can't see it anymore. That's what we once saw about an hour and a half ago. It's all gone. That fire is also out. A big difference from what we saw a couple of hours ago. Just take a look at some of these images where you can really see that smoke rise above the stadium. Denver Fire tells me the fire started around 2:15. The stadium was empty, but there was an event on the second level involving about 100 people. They were all able to safely leave the area. Once fire crews entered the stadium, they found a fire burning in the suite area on level 4 and in the seating area on the third level. Denver Fire says the plastic seats produced a dark smoke due to the petroleum products they're made of. Still, there's no indication of what started the fire. In total, the fire burned about 1,000 square feet and nobody was injured. When we first arrived on scene, I also had the chance to speak with someone who was visiting from Delaware. They told me this was the first time visiting Empower Field. They took a tour of the stadium and he was actually inside in that tour when the fire started to break out. I mean, for him to process that the first time ever visiting here, quite the experience. Again, thankfully nobody was injured. Live outside Empower Field, Ivan Rodriguez, Denver 7.
Ivan, thank you. Now, the other top story that we're following at 4 o'clock, Colorado lawmakers have unveiled a bill to crack down on fentanyl distribution. The bill comes as the number of deaths in the state climbs, including 5 who died in February from ingesting cocaine laced with the drug. Denver 7 politics reporter Megan Lopez was at that bill's unveiling. Megan, this bill is long and sponsors call it multi-pronged.
Yeah, that's right, Jason. The bill is 45 pages long. We've gotten a draft copy of it. Now, it increases the penalties for distributing that drug. It also has an element of it that would hold distributors accountable for people who they distribute the drug to who die as a result of that fentanyl. It has an education element, it has a rehabilitation element, and more. This is a bipartisan bill, meaning both Republicans and Democrats have signed on to it as co-sponsors. Now, at today's press conference, we heard from lawmakers about the care that they put into crafting this bill and the balance that they were trying to strike. Part of the bill lowers the threshold for how much fentanyl a person can carry to be considered a felony to 4 grams. We also heard from families who have lost loved ones to fentanyl, and they wanted to make it clear that this was not an overdose, it was a poisoning, and distributors need to be held accountable. District attorneys also spoke at that press conference about the tools that this bill will provide in particular and the ability to be able to hold those distributors liable for the deaths.
We as an office are going to be able to put the resources behind this now to say when we see a case where someone is dead due to fentanyl, we are going to do everything we can to find that dealer, to figure out who is responsible and hold them accountable.
Not everyone is happy with the bill in its current form, though, so we could see changes. We heard from police organizations today that said that they don't feel that the bill went far enough when it comes to the amounts, but also to that possession kind of element of it. And so they want to see some changes made to that bill. We expect it to be formally introduced this week. I'm live, Megan Lopez, Denver 7.
Megan, thank you. For 3 weeks now, a Colorado jury has been asked to take a look at the first federal court case in the country involving a police department's response to George Floyd demonstrations. Denver police officers, protesters, and the former independent monitor for Denver have all testified over the course of the past few weeks. As attorneys prepare for closing arguments, we sat down with civil rights attorney Andy McNulty, who broke down some of the key moments of this trial.
I think one of the most key moments in the entire trial was the testimony of Nick Mitchell, the independent monitor, and talking about these interviews he did of police officers who told him that they were not prepared at all for these protests to erupt.
McNulty says this case will have nationwide implications. Tonight at 6, hear from a protester who is also planning to sue city officials and a criminal justice expert who says exercising your First Amendment right shouldn't destroy the rights of others.
World leaders who make up the G7 are putting new sanctions on Russia. They say they'll no longer accept gold transactions from the country's central bank. They say Russia has about $130 billion worth of gold in its reserves. In addition, the U.S. is issuing new sanctions that target defense companies, members of Russia's government, and dozens of Russian elites. The U.S. also has more plans to help Ukrainians. The White House says it will give an additional $1 billion toward humanitarian assistance, and $11 billion will address food insecurity over the next 5 years. Russia and Ukraine's agriculture industry has been severely disrupted. The U.S. is also prepared to welcome as many as 100,000 Ukrainian refugees. Priority will be given to those who are most vulnerable. About 3.5 million people have left Ukraine since Russia's invasion. That's according to the latest numbers from the UN Refugee Agency. Most Ukrainians are seeking safety in neighboring countries. Poland has taken in more than 2 million people, and Romania more than 500,000. That's where we caught up with the Red Cross, who shared these photos with us.
It is absolutely so heartwarming to see the welcome that people are receiving in neighboring countries. I talked to one woman who said that she's actually been to various countries around the world, and when she crossed into Romania, she just started crying because she was so impressed by all the teamwork that she had seen on the border.
Janelle Eli says border crossings are lined with aid tents from dozens of different organizations. They're offering everything from the basics to SIM cards and charging stations so people who got separated from their loved ones can reconnect.
A couple other really common things that people ask for that surprised me were things like lip balm and chapstick, because people have been walking, it's frigid here.
The Red Cross says monetary donations are the most efficient way to help overseas. You can donate through the International Red Cross website at ifrc.org. But there are other ways to help that money can't buy.
There are refugees in your own community, and they need welcoming. They may not be from Ukraine, but they're from all over the world, and they're trying to navigate their new lives in the U.S.
Janelle plans to head to Poland next to help with humanitarian efforts there.
Ukraine's government says some cities are running out of food and medical supplies, and a Colorado group is trying to help by sending supplies to the country. Here's Denver 7's Jessica Crawford.
Life-saving supplies ready to be packed up and shipped out to a country under siege.
It's horrific to even think of what they do and what level of terror and genocide my people going through.
Marina Dobrova arrived in the U.S. in the 90s. Ever since then, she's done all she could to help her home country with the group Ukrainians of Colorado. When Russia began to attack Ukraine, she wanted to do more.
All the pictures of cities which I remember as being so beautiful and happy, full of life, and now they're all in shambles, they're rubble. It's unimaginable.
One of the country's greatest needs, medical supplies. This week, volunteers are needed to help get these supplies to Ukraine.
Russians cut the supply, humanitarian supply. They refuse to open humanitarian corridors, or they let people leave those occupied cities and then they just shoot them in the back.
As we know, many hospitals have been bombed and people do not have medical supplies.
Does every little thing count in this situation?
I think every little thing counts in everything we do. You know, there's hundreds of millions of Americans, and if we all do something, it really adds up.
That support, Dobrova says, is needed now more than ever.
It's unimaginable situation some of our brothers and sisters are going through.
Our Jessica Crawford reporting tonight. Volunteers have already started packing supplies. If you'd like to help, volunteers are still needed tomorrow. They will be at the Project Cure headquarters in Centennial from 12:45 to 3. We have a link at thedenverchannel.com where you can sign up.
A new rule could help decide asylum cases in just months instead of years. The Biden administration says asylum officers in some cases will be able to grant or deny asylum applications. Now, this would mean those eligible would be accepted into the U.S. faster, and those who don't qualify will be asked to leave right away. Unaccompanied children will be exempt. Typically, a judge has final ruling, but there's currently a huge backlog. A group of 10 airlines are asking the White House to scale back on COVID restrictions. Airlines for America says passengers should no longer have to wear masks on planes, and international travelers shouldn't have to be tested for COVID. The federal transportation mask mandate does end next month, but could be extended. The CDC says cases are trending downward, but Omicron's new subvariant is spreading faster than the original version. Companies reducing the amount of product in their packages has become even more common.
Basically, it's a sneaky way to pass on a price increase.
Why this will likely be more of a long-term change than we'd like to think.
And later on Denver 7 News at 4, some Denver schools were allowed more leeway to customize curriculum for kids. We take a look at why the district wants to change those rules now.